The narcissistic world is built out of narcissistic systems. Most people exist inside many of them at the same time: workplaces, family structures, social expectations, cultural norms, traditions, and unspoken rules. You move through these systems automatically, often without realizing how much they shape you, until something in you reaches a limit and decides to leave. Leaving rarely happens dramatically. It is usually slow and quiet. You don't exit everything at once. You step away from one system, then another, and over time you begin to build an independent life. Not isolated, but no longer owned. You will still need to cooperate with narcissistic systems to some degree, because this is how the world is currently organized. But cooperation is very different from being entangled. When you are internally independent, you are far harder to trap. And when the system cannot trap you, your experience of people changes completely. Narcissism usually does not fully reveal itself unless it senses an opening. When it cannot catch you, it often stays hidden. You may see brief flashes, moments of manipulation, superiority, or entitlement, but it does not fully engage. What you are shown instead is a facade: competence, kindness, professionalism, decency. It works very much like a predator assessing prey. If the target appears too difficult, too costly, or too independent to trap, the predator moves on. That is why, once you build an independent life, the world can feel surprisingly calmer and more humane. This does not mean the narcissistic world disappears. It still exists. It is still everywhere. And that is precisely why it is powerful, because it is embedded in structures that decide livelihoods, reputations, access, and social belonging. Freedom begins at the moment you decide that you will no longer belong to these systems in the same way. Not by fighting them, not by exposing them, not by trying to fix them, but by withdrawing your dependency from them. When you make that decision, something else begins to guide you. It is not an external authority. Not a leader, not a belief system, not a god you must bow to. It is an internal orientation. At first, this requires pruning. Shame, guilt, fear, and internalized moral pressure need to be seen for what they are. Once those layers thin out, guidance becomes simple. It is not dramatic. You don't hear voices. You simply know what to do. You are not trying to harm anyone. You are not trying to win. You are not trying to prove anything. You are simply aware. When you stop feeding narcissistic systems, emotionally, energetically, psychologically, something becomes very clear. You begin to see how much of your previous behavior was shaped by pressure rather than truth. You see how environments affect behavior, how atmospheres shape identity, how people are slowly molded into roles that then appear to define them. You also begin to notice traps earlier. Not all of them, because this world is predatory by design, but many of them. You still get caught sometimes. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you are human. The difference is that you recover faster, with less self-betrayal and less confusion. As your connection to your true self stabilizes, freedom grows naturally. You are supported by an inner power that does not demand suffering, sacrifice, or performance. That power has always been there. Narcissistic systems survive on separation, false authorities, false hierarchies, false ideals that demand obedience and self-erasure. Historically and culturally, this has often meant suppressing the feminine, suppressing sensitivity, suppressing instinct, suppressing authenticity. When you stop feeding those structures, you don't replace them with another ideology. You simply live. You observe. You choose carefully. You move through the world without needing to conquer it or save it. This is how freedom actually happens. Quietly. Internally. One system at a time. This was just a short reflection, still raw, still imperfect, but I hope it helps. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.